Hey everyone, and welcome to With XO. I'm Xorje Olivares, or XO, because XORJEOLIVARES. Those are the letters of my name. Very excited to share those initials and letters with you today. And I'm excited to also share this conversation with somebody who holds a very special place in my heart. As I tried reminding her right now, because didn't know if she would remember, but thankfully she did. So about a couple years ago, it was about February 2021. I was hosting my show, Affirmative Reaction, at SiriusXM, where some of you might remember that I was doing a show there for a few years. And since it was Black History Month, I wanted to use the opportunity of having a show to provide to provide the platform that I had to Black creatives who I was very much a fan of and very much wanted my listeners to get a chance to learn a bit more from. And one of the first people I had a chance to reach out to was Ashley Ray. Now, Ashley hosts a show called TV I Say with Ashley Ray. Ashley is a pop culture expert and somebody who probably watches just as much TV, if not more than I do. And so I was very excited to not only share my show with her then, but to welcome her onto the show today to talk about all things that are happening on TV. The fact that she's had a chance to interview so many different creatives herself as part of her show, which is now in its second season. And so excited to welcome Ashley to With XO. Ashley, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Of course, I remembered. I was so excited to do this. That was so special because it was when my podcast was still independent. I was doing it myself. I was just paying some company in Canada to edit the episodes for me.
As
And
one does.
as one does, and you helped me out so much that was so great. So
Oh, thank you. The thing that I'm most excited to talk about with you today is the fact that there has been quite a bit of a journey for you over the past 2 years since we last communicated. And one of it is the fact that you were just on tour. You've just been going all over the place with your comedy, with the show. And so I wanted to ask, now that we've had these 2 years in between us, how am I meeting you today? How would you say you are sitting with yourself as a creative, as a professional, as a podcaster, as a comedian? Where are we today?
Uh, it's very different. Like I said, I was just kind of grinding alone in my bedroom for most of quarantine. And now I have my podcast is on Earwolf. I have this huge team that I work with and like a actual producer and I am working on an album. I just did a little tour in the Midwest and stuff and I just feel like I've been really just working with people and collaborating again, which feels really good after all of the time of feeling so, okay, this is independent. This is me, doing this. And having a podcast about TV, that's great because TV is, I think, just a collaborative thing. Like watching it, making it, it's better to talk to people. And yeah, I think the biggest change, like the first season, there's one episode where for maybe 20 minutes, I talk about the difference between Hoarders and Hoarding Buried Alive, two different shows, often confused for one show. And for 20, I just go on. And that was the first time a friend of mine texted me and was like, Ashley, yeah, I love the pot, but I didn't care. And then with a producer is like, so what if we just do 3 minutes of that and then the rest of it is stuff people want to talk about actually. And that's the stuff that I think is really great. So yeah, that's where
I
I'm
think
at
the
now.
thing that's most helpful about the collaborative process is because of things like that, right? Like we get so excited if it's about TV, if it's about anything pop culture, if it's anything that we love so dearly, that we know we could talk about it for a very long time, and that we know that there's
Yeah.
probably somebody else who could appreciate that conversation. And so I want to talk about that first part about recognizing that TV was that thing that you knew that you wanted to spend 20 minutes talking about two distinct shows, or 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour talking to other folks, or even just talking to yourself about some of the really cool TV offerings that are out there.
Yeah, I started my writing career, I don't know, my professional freelance career, I guess, as a TV critic. So I loved writing about TV shows, the just patterns you see TV reflect over decades. In college, my I did a independent research project on the history of Black television. So I which like I had one professor who was like, yeah, I got a bunch of old episodes of like Rock on VHS. I don't know, you want to watch it? We would like
He's like,
watch
I can
Scandal
help you in your
together.
journey, believe me.
Yeah, she was an amazing professor who was just like, somebody needs these episodes of Living Single, I say, for some reason. And I wrote this whole paper on it, and I just realized like, oh, I want to write about pop culture and do it. And eventually I started freelancing at the AV Club and like writing about Scandal, Blackish. And I don't know, I think as a TV critic, there's kind of I mean, you have to have a certain like harshness or not harshness, no, just a
An
um
ability to not care what others are going to say
yeah,
once you
yeah.
put your perspective out there.
It's a bluntness, and I also think like respect. I think any good criticism comes with, you know, a dose of like respect for the craft or the art or what is happening or what, you know, the message could be or what audience something is trying to get. You know, like not everything is going to be for me, and sometimes I can respect a work that isn't for me, but yeah. So yeah, you have to kind of develop that sense as a critic and find that line for yourself. And I had found it for me, like, you know, and I think I had a really distinct voice as a critic. And it's again just it for me. I wanted to more celebrate TV and the art and the collaboration of TV versus being a critic where you're kind of criticizing, but it's just it's kind of a different reflection, I think. And as I became more of a creative, so like a few years into writing, I started doing stand up, and being on the other side of it, it's even more different where it's like I'm a creative, I want to talk to other creatives about like this process, what inspires us. So I stopped kind of doing criticism, but I still needed an outlet to talk about TV in a positive way, and you know, stepping away from like a critical lens. You know, it's like, does that, we don't need to talk about everything in terms of, you know, is this a think piece? Can I write 1,000 words about this? I just want to sit down with, you know, Jacob Anderson and be like, oh my gosh, you like Community too? What's your favorite episode? You know, and then like, what did
Sometimes you
you
just
think
want to know that somebody else loves the thing you
you
love.
love? Or, you know, like, oh, someone else felt the same way I did about The Bear or Atlanta. And so that's what I got to do with the podcast. And that's why I wanted to start it. And that, so yeah, for me, it was like kind of this shift of realizing, okay, um, I'm not a critic anymore. I'm gonna take this kind of other side, uh, and do something different and find a way to still express that love I have.
How difficult would you say it was? And I'll try very hard not to project too much, but I feel like as a person of color, as a queer person of color, it's very difficult to even broach that idea of being a critic because you're so afraid that someone's going to attack you and diminish your perspective because of that lived experience that you bring to the table. Was
Yeah.
that something that you had to navigate, or was that something that you just had to say, "You know what? Fuck it. We gotta just move
Oh
on, do the
yeah. I
thing,
mean,
and live my
yeah.
life."
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, like I started at the AV Club, and when I was at the AV Club, this was to 2016, when it was still kind of known as like this predominantly white male indie, like, you know, we're the harsh male white dude cool critics who say what's all and what's cool. And then there weren't many black writers, I think, or just writers of color at that time, probably in the history of maybe 10, 15 of us total, like in the freelance, everything on staff, maybe like one or two at that point, people of color. And so when I started writing immediately, and they had such an active like community and comment board. And obviously, as someone who had been a fan of the AV Club, I knew that. Like, I knew I was jumping in with the sharks. I was like, these are the people who tear critics apart and spend all night making jokes on Reddit or whatever. And when I started, there were immediately people who were like, oh, you know, she's just writing for the site because she's black, this diversity stuff, who cares about Blackish and all these things, but yeah, da da da. But I think you just learn to like tune that out. Like the AV writing for the AV Club taught me like, you don't need to read the comments. Don't read the comments. It's not worth it. It's not, just, you know, who cares? Don't read the comments. Uh so that was a great lesson to kind of learn early on, that so many people just are going to bring their own baggage or whatever, and also you kind of find the people who start to understand your voice and are excited and share the pieces and get what you're trying to say overall. And those conversations tend to be better. Even if somebody calls you out for something on Twitter, that tends to be a better conversation than someone who is anonymous in a comment board. Like,
I can imagine that, especially when it comes to pop culture, TV criticism, that you need that level of humor, right? If you have people who are coming back to you every single week to hear what you have to say about Scandal, about The Bear, about White Lotus, about Game of Thrones, whatever it may be, that there's a style of writing, there's a style of approach that you have to assume, right? To be able to make sure that you catch their attention. Would you say the writing helped you develop the stand-up persona that you have, or how did they inform each other? Being able to
yeah.
comment about this particular thing and then put that on stage.
Yeah, I definitely think you need that sense of humor with pop culture and stuff. I think that was another part of being a freelance writer and a critic. I just kind of got tired of approaching everything with like this sense of gravity and what is going to be the most successful take or interesting take. I just wanted to approach things in a, okay, these are my first thoughts, this is how I feel about this. um and I think just kind of letting that go, that was the thing I had to let go of. Stand up forces you to do that, because stand up is just, what did you experience today? What's happening in the news? How do you feel about it? Get on a stage, go to an open mic tonight and just talk about it. Just, try a new joke, work some things out. And so I think that kind of informed it, because it just kind of made me go, okay, how, like, am I thinking too much about this? Like, just kind of step back, and that was a good thing to turn off.
And tell me if I'm wrong with this, so the title of the podcast again is called TV I Say with Ashley Ray.
Yes.
And I feel like, yes, I love a good rhyming moment. But I also love that it kind of is a nod to your life as a critic, because
Yeah.
there's such a declarative, like, TV I Say with Ashley Ray, and I'm going to tell you what I feel about XYZ, whether it's TV shows, about actors. Was that, am I reading
That's
correctly
100%
into
what I was going for. You're like one of the first people to pick up on it, actually. Like, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
because I think when you're writing for publications, people see you as, oh, this is such a declarative statement. She's making laws of TV or something. Like when I'm writing
Laws of
something,
TV, I
yeah,
love
the
that.
laws of television. Like if I'm writing for Vulture and I'm like, this 90 days the best, it people see it as this publication is saying. And I didn't want to have that kind of approach. Like, this is just what I say. This is what just me, Ash. This is what I'm just saying about TV. It's just me. It cannot hurt you. It's like
You'll be
it's okay.
safe regardless.
It's safe. This is just what I say. This is what you have to say. It can be about any TV. I respect all of it. Yeah, even the reality, all of TV, whatever. That's what I love to approach it as. It's what we all want to say about it, versus, oh, let's discuss, like, did you read the Rolling Stone piece on The Wire being the best show in the world? How do you feel about that?
It's always labeled number one. Have you watched The
Always number.
Wire?
Oh my gosh, I've watched The Wire probably 8 times. I love
Dang.
The Wire. I
Okay.
actually, my senior year of college, I took a class on The Wire. We had an
Holy
entire
shit, that's
semester
cool.
long course on The Wire, which it was a really great class. It was basically an American history class where you studied like inner city and how it was accurately and inaccurately reflected in the show. And so
If I'm gonna follow this tangent.
yeah.
If you could take another class based on
Ooh.
any other show you've had a chance to watch, what would that class be that you would take? And then what would be the class that you would teach?
Ooh, okay. Okay. Uh I'm gonna start with teach because it's easier. I'm gonna Mad Men. Oh, I would teach Mad Men. I
Oh.
would teach the shit out of a Mad Men class. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear. I
Oh,
can
swear all you want.
okay. I would teach the shit out of a Mad Men class. I love the show. I've watched it. I rewatch it every year. It's just so beautiful to me, and it's the reason I got into advertising. Like, obviously, wanting to write TV criticism after college, that didn't happen. Like, it's very hard to get those jobs. And people at my college were like, "Hey, do an advertising internship. I binge Mad Men one weekend and I'm like, yeah, this looks easy. I could do this. I could do this. I like immediately applied to something at Digitas. I got it that summer. After graduating, I just was like, yeah, I'm going to get advertising jobs. And so I ended up working at Ogilvy, which is the company Mad Men is based off of. And they, at the time the show was so popular, they embraced it in the office. Like your first day, you got David Ogilvy's book, which like they reference in the show because it's like all these quotes from like a white man in the 60s. You read it and it's him just being like, the perfect way to work is with a whiskey at 6 a.m. and then you don't leave your desk all night. It's like, this is horrible. They make you
Like
watch
John Hamm?
yeah, like they make you watch this video that's like cuts of Mad Men with the founder on your and like people had bars in their offices, but this is advertising is not really that cool. Like they wanted to believe they were Don Draper, but in reality, their bar carts were like Fireball and Smirnoff Ice. Like that's
more
the
more of the
modern.
people.
Yeah, they were like these Big Ten frat guys, kind of, who were just like, yeah, I'm basically Don Draper, except like I don't own furniture in my house. Like,
I don't own furniture in my house. I don't have a sunken living room, and I don't have a wife who's singing "Zooby
yeah,
Zooby Zoo."
it's like imagine if you watched Love Is Blind the last season. Imagine Cole from Love Is Blind believing he is Don Draper. Like that was the era of like 2015 that like when Mad Men was kind of coming to its close. Yeah, 2015. Yeah. So that's the one I would teach because I know the ins and the outs of that one. And the one I would take, that is such a good question. That is really, really hard. Okay.
It could even be about a genre of TV. It could be about
Yeah, I'm like a
classic new
genre.
one.
I feel like I would want to take a course on like modern documentary. Like there's all these weird little documentaries being made right now. I just watched one on Netflix about some guy who tried to sue Pepsi. There was a documentary about Barney, and I just want to understand how these decisions are getting made.
Who's the executive in the room who's like, the Barney one?
Yeah,
Let's greenlight that one.
and they're all 1,000,000 episodes. Like this isn't just like an hour or like an episode. They're like, here are 4-hour-long episodes about a guy who sued Pepsi, and they're really just like, so let's start at his birth. And it's like, we don't need to start there. We don't have to start there. We don't need that.
I don't need to go all the way to Poughkeepsie to find out about this Pepsi dude.
Okay, yeah, let's just get to, and so he sued Pepsi. Let's go there. Come on.
I find it so fascinating that I think we're of the same generation. We grew up when there was like 5 TV channels, maybe 10. And now we have all the offerings, right? You've got the whatever pluses, you've got the Netflix, the Hulus, the Paramounts, the like. How are you getting a chance to watch all the things? And how do you allow yourself the chance to just say, you know what? I don't have the time for that one, or I don't have the time for that one.
I do. I have gotten more selective in old age. I have calendars that I kind of use. I have like a schedule of like, okay, this comes out today. Like I have Thursday TV I watch. So I do keep up like daily with new things. And then weekends I usually save to like binge things. If there were like this weekend I'm gonna do Dead Like Me, or not Dead Like Me, Dead to Me.
Dead
On
to Me.
Netflix. Yeah, Dead to Me. Dead Like Me is really good too. I love an annual
The
rewatch
fact
of
that
that
there's so
show.
many different
Just
shows that are even just like a word
oh
away
yeah,
from each
like
other.
it's so confusing. But Dead to Me, the final season is out. I'm gonna binge that one. And so I kind of schedule it that way. But in my old age, I've gotten more selective. I think before I would stick with any show, like Grownish on Freeform. I watched that for so long and I don't know why. I just couldn't give it up. I still watch Grey's Anatomy, but that one I've been watching that show since like 2005. Like,
That's the one where you're like, you know what? I've already invested too much of my
too
time
much.
and
Yeah, I'm
energy.
not
Meredith
walking
Grey is a
away.
godmother at this point. Just
She's like
run with it.
family. She's like family. I have known Meredith Grey longer than some friends in my life. I cannot walk away from that woman. I mean, she's walking away from us. She's leaving the show. But I can respect her choice, and I'm sure she'll be back to visit. But that's a whole other topic. But But yeah, I don't know. I try not to watch things that like everyone is already talking about, because if something's a big conversation, it's like you don't need me telling you to watch like Severance, right? Like everybody's talking about Severance. It's so good. Everybody's talking about Succession. I mean, I'm going to talk about both of them still, but I'm not going to focus a lot of time or try to binge those so I can like be up to date. I like to take my time and enjoy those shows how I want to, cuz you got enough places to talk about those shows. I'm the girl who's gonna be up to date on the Goldbergs for you. I'm gonna tell you what's happening on the
Oh,
latest episode of like Home Economics. I'm gonna tell you about like Blockbuster and the Gordita Chronicles and these cool shows that you like probably didn't really hear about or kind of did and weren't sure if you should check it out. That's kind of what I prefer to do. Like I sit with an app. I rotate a lot of free trials and secret emails. Like they can't find me out. But like I'll be like, okay, I got another 2 free weeks on Peacock. What do they have here that I haven't seen that just looks kind of interesting or has a good cast? That's how I found the show Shrink, which is a great comedy based in Chicago, killing it. And Rutherford Falls. People don't get the chance to just like sit with streaming apps the way we used to do with cable channels. I got, like I remember sitting and being like, oh, Comedy Central, like, oh, they play SNL reruns at this time. And then at this point, like it's, stand up. And so I just try to do that to really find hidden gems or just things I think could use more attention. So
only because you brought it up. Am I making a mistake by completely bailing on Blockbuster?
that is such I think it is a show with a lot of promise for future seasons. I think it takes a long time for an ensemble to find that energy. Like Superstore had that same issue, and like that, I would say, when you started hearing people say, "Oh, you got to check out Superstore," it's really found its voice, it's really found its energy, like in season 2, 3. And then you jump in and you enjoy it, and then maybe you go back to that first season. So if that
I mean,
happens
that's
with
how I was with Parks and
Blockbuster.
Rec. Parks and
Yeah,
Rec was probably is one of my favorite TV shows
exactly.
ever, and that first season was a little off. Same thing with Schitt's Creek. Like,
Yeah,
I
Schitt's
think
Creek. I think people forget like Parks and Rec, the day it came out, actually like 2 weeks before it was supposed to premiere, one of the internal notes got leaked to the press and it was tearing the show apart. It was just like, this is horrible. It's like nobody's gonna like Leslie. This is awful. And it was so bad that it forced them to do all these reshoots and like reapproach things. And then it went on to become the Parks and Rec we love. So there's so much talent on the cast. There's so much talent behind the scenes. Uh, when I think when you're hearing that, that it's found its voice, it will.
I feel like the reason I specifically single that one out, and I can honestly single out 25 other different shows, is because I think at this particular moment we just have lost our patience, right? As TV
Yeah,
consumers, as viewers, when we know that there are a gazillion different
so many
episodes
shows.
of TV to watch or to revisit,
Yeah,
like we talk about Mad Men, Parks and Rec, like when there's something else that could be a quote unquote better use of my time, sometimes you don't allow these shows to grow in the ways that they need to. And that's probably incredibly unfortunate for these
yeah.
creators and all these people who are trying
There's
to
yeah.
really get these shows off the ground.
There's so many just like wonderful shows that just have one season because they don't want to give it a chance. I really loved Maggie on Hulu. I thought it was a really just sweet show. It was kind of just bringing back fun rom-com type shows that are a little silly, but more high quality. It kind of had like an Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt feel to it, but not as Tina Fey inspired. It, it
Which
was
is a
yeah,
very
which is
distinct
you'd
voice that
like
she
I feel
has.
like saying that was, you can picture it almost. And it got great reviews. People liked it and it just didn't get renewed because it's just one of the many, many shows that are out there. Just every week there's something. So my goal at TV, I say, is to help you sort through it, is to say, what do you because again, I don't think you need to always base what you watch on the critical acclaim. Sure, I'm gonna watch The Crown. Everybody's telling me to watch it. I'm gonna save it for Thanksgiving Day when I'm like drinking all day and don't really care. But, what about the moments when I want to watch something scary, or I want to just get high and watch something that's romantic and is going to make me laugh? That's the things I like to help people kind of sort through and find.
So for those who haven't had a chance to listen to either TV I Say as a series or the past few episodes, what are some of those TV series that you're calling attention to right now?
Ooh, yeah, there's a lot. Uh, I feel like we're just, again, in this big time of so much TV. Reservation Dogs has been the one I am
Fantastic.
fantastic. I need it to sweep the Emmys. It's the one that I'm like, come on, people, let's get it together. Inside Job on Netflix. It's an adult animated comedy. I think the current season of Rick and Morty is getting so much attention, but Inside Job, a lot of the same writers. It's really smart. It's about basically this government department that actually does run conspiracies. It's really funny if you like an adult animated show. I think I already said Gordita Chronicles, but I am rewatching it for the holidays because it was just such a wonderful family comedy. So good. And also Home Economics in that same kind of department. I think Home Economics, people kind of wrote it off as just another ABC family sitcom, but this it's in season 2 right now, 3. I should remember that. But this latest season, it's gotten into like a just darker vibe of, secret love children, and it's going in a really interesting direction. So I love an ABC sitcom. Abbott Elementary already told you the network sitcom is back. It's good again. So dig into it with that show. And then also American Auto. If you like Superstore, it's by the same creator. It just is, again, a wonderful ensemble comedy. Anna Gasteyer is the lead. Love seeing her. So
What is the particular type of show that will always draw you in? Is it the comedy? Is it that like
ooh.
ABC is of the of what we used to grow up in when was
Yeah,
ABC kind of
like
sitcom? Is it now the single camera?
yeah, and I've at one point I would say it was like the NBC sitcom. Like if something was coming up with Community, 30 Rock, anything in that era, I was watching it. I didn't care if it only lasted 6 episodes, 8 episodes. There's so many tiny little shows that I watched just because they came on after Community. Uh, Anything like that. And now I feel like that is the comedy you get on Peacock. Like they kind of moved all those weird comedies there. So anytime I see a comedian I'm excited about working with Peacock, I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm excited for the next season of like Killing It, Girls Five Eva, which now is on Netflix. So sorry, I lost out on that one. Um, yeah.
What is like if you were drawn to drama, reality TV? I'm trying to think of like competition. There's so many different styles of TV now, I feel,
Yeah.
but the fixer upper shows, right? Where it's like the feel good, but it doesn't really fall into reality, maybe question mark. What are those other genres that you feel are really enticing?
uh okay, I think my biggest weak spot is anything that's like sad reality, which sounds awful. I my friends are always like, "Can't you just watch Beverly Hills Wives?" And I can't get into that stuff really. Like I'll follow some people for seasons, but my biggest thing is, oh, let me just watch a Hoarders. Like, I love Intervention. And Digital Addiction is this new one that came out, and it is truly people who are addicted to the internet. I thought I had a problem. No, there's people who straight up are just like, I wake up in the morning and then I spend 16 hours like just playing video games and looking at porn. It is
Dang.
wild. I recommend it. It made me feel a lot better about what I deal with. But
As we check our phone, is everything
yeah,
okay?
as I check my phone, but just anything like that, Seeking Sister Wives, which is, like, gross and weird, and you hate everyone because 'cause they're just all, like, misogynists who wanna turn women into their harem or something, but I can't stop watching it, even though it makes me angry. Every 90 Day Fiancé spinoff, all of it. I will sit and watch every variation of that mess. I don't care what they want to spoon feed me that's garbage. I will take it right in. That's my brand of reality TV. I like the sad stuff where it's like, ah, oh no, this is a real person whose life is like real facing real stakes.
I feel like I mean, the beauty of television, right? Where it can make us laugh, it can make us cry, it can make us think, it can make us angry, it can make us have
Yeah.
all the spectrum of emotions that come with being a human. I say this as I just binged The Floor is Lava on Netflix, which is a like Wipeout esque show where you
Yeah.
just watch people fall,
Fall. Yeah.
which is weird. But I want to talk about what you think is this particular moment of television, right? There's so many more opportunities for people who look like you and me. There's so many different just voices that are out there that would never have been given a chance. Do do you think that that's because of the moment we're at in television where there are so many things? I used to say this about New York, that there was so much to New York that there's nothing to New York because you can't make that decision. There's that like what they call the Amazon paralysis where you just can't make choices.
Yeah.
Do you think that that unfortunately makes it difficult for those diverse creators because there's so much that some people just don't know what to go for?
Yeah. I think we are at this interesting point where there was so much opportunity. There were so many different networks, streamers, platforms. You get a show on Tubi, Quibi, everything was like blowing up. And slowly we're seeing it scale back down. And during that like wave, so many, and this is a wave that started in like, 2016, even with things like YouTube Red and stuff. Like Facebook Watch, like all of that stuff is part of that wave where you saw early Black creators getting funded. Like Quinta Brunson's earliest shows were on that, and now she's on ABC. So you see, they were funding people who are very talented and very good, but then we're at this weird point where television is now owned by weird conglomerates and companies like Verizon and weird mergers of HBO and WB. And so you see all of this growth, all of this growth, all this diversity. A lot of it's successful. Some of it isn't able to get the funding or support it deserves for a million other reasons. I mean, you look at I mean, Peacock, which I have been singing praises for because I have to, because they don't know how to promote themselves. Peacock does not promote their shows. They have amazing comedy. And then you'll be like, hey, have you heard of We Are Lady Parts? And people are like, no, I've never seen an ad for that in my life. So there's all these reasons these shows aren't being successful, but I think it's a weird point right now where we're seeing the scale back. Budgets are being slashed kind of in all these industries where, because of these mergers, we're seeing a lot of shows get canceled. And it's a scary time where people are pointing to these cancellations and looking at like all the diversity that came before and saying, oh, it didn't work. See, that didn't work. And it's like, that's not what didn't work. Like, that's not what's happening here. That's not what's impacting. A lot of this did work. A lot of this created amazing show, like, Atlanta. These are the things we got from this wave. And it's like a scary moment where the networks are scaling back. When that happens, they tend to want to tell kind of really simple stories that are going to appeal to the most people. And it's like a weird time where, even though there is so much opportunity and there was, it's kind of like the industry's holding its breath, like, did it really work? Like, did all that diversity work? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. And I don't know. I think that's why we still haven't seen a show like A League of Their Own on Prime Video. It's still waiting to be renewed. This Fool on Hulu, which I love, absolutely amazing. Just immediately was one of my favorite new sitcoms when I watched it. I was like, I could watch seasons of this. It just felt so good. And it took Hulu forever to renew it. That show was getting amazing reviews all over the place, had like a great audience response, and it took them forever to be like, okay, yeah, you know what? We will take this show back. And then you look at the shows that are getting those quick renewals, and it tends to be shows with like The Bear that was renewed almost right away. When you got a attractive looking white boy in your lead, that resonated with a lot of people pretty quickly. So that's kind of the weird place we're at right now, where it's like we're still in this conflict of what could come next and people holding on to their old school notions of what most people want.
You've had a really great chance to over the past 2 seasons of TV I Say with Ashley Ray, which again everyone can get a chance to listen to wherever they listen to this podcast and others. But you've had a chance to talk to some of these creatives, right? Some of these people who are involved in these projects who are trying very hard to either get their vision across or to support somebody else get their vision across. What has it been like to have these intimate conversations with people who you not only admire because of what they do in the field that they're in, but who might be closer aligned to you than to the average TV viewer that executives want them to appeal the most to?
Yeah, I think that's the kinda cool part of my show is I talk to these brilliant showrunners, like, I got to talk to the showrunner of A League of Their Own, the showrunner of, The Fosters, which is one of the first TV shows to feature, an openly lesbian couple, and I did a whole episode around that, and we got to talk about the realities of how hard you have to fight still to get those stories across, and how there's still so much fear of the heartland or certain areas not responding to those stories. And yeah, those are like big topics, and they have far more radical opinions than the networks that they have to kind of negotiate with. But I also just kind of love starting every conversation with, what TV shows did you watch when you were growing up? What did you watch this weekend when you were like eating some ice cream on the couch? It's, I think, meeting people at sort of the reality of how they watch TV, versus just focusing on the big topics. And I don't, I think when you start working in the business, you're like the job of it, like you want to remember the joy of why you do this, the joy of TV, what made you so happy and inspired by it. And so I like to start there and just talk to people about, the stuff they really love that makes them happy. And I think that's where I find a lot of connections with people that might be weird. That's how I find, like, Seth Rogen is also obsessed with 90 Day Fiance, so he came on and we talked about that. Or I'll find out like some other Jerry O'Connell from Star Trek lore. He's obsessed with Below Deck, and I was just like, me too. And we talked about that for forever. So, I think when you kind of start there, it makes it easier to get into these bigger conversations of, we all understand how this industry is.
What has been a sort of aha moment that you've had when you've had conversations with some of these folks for your show?
Oh, I feel like I've had so many aha moments. I feel like every episode people are teaching me things. I like to believe I'm taking that journey, that the listener on that journey too. Like
I mean, that's part of it, right? We
yeah,
are sometimes the conduit for not only the conversation, but for all sorts of
yeah.
learning
'Cause,
opportunities.
yeah, I know a lot about TV and my sort of area of TV history that I've studied and, that I've experienced, but I love when someone comes on and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, Ashley, like, you didn't know about, this show alone where you're, like, naked in the woods and these people have to compete to win all this money," and I'm just like, "No, you're telling me about an entirely new thing that I had never." So, like, that's how I got a Big Brother. That was one where it was so removed from my world, and then I kind of learn about it. So I love kind of just discovering new subsets of like fandoms, I guess. And I'm trying to think of like the biggest oh wow moment. I feel like there's so many. And I feel like if you listen to the podcast, you'll actively hear me being like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that." Like, "Oh my
You'll
god,
see it
wow."
happen in real time. You're
In
like,
real time, and you'll be
oh
like,
shit.
"Oh wow, there." I think a lot of them are about like the kind of realities of how some of the reality shows I like are made. Talking to people who actually produce them and seeing how it all gets cut together. I've talked to a lot of the couples from 90 Day Fiance and seeing the kind of reflection of their relationship on the show versus how it is in reality. That's always interesting. Um, and yeah, I think it is just great when people are just kind of more honest about like the shows they love or the things they're watching, when someone's just like, "You know what? Everybody is saying they love this show, but I just don't get it." Like that's always really fun to me.
I Is there somebody we've had a chance, I mean, you've talked about how TV has been something that you've loved for quite some time. So if you were to reflect back on either a show that you grew up with or a show that means so much to you, is there somebody who's tied to that particular show that you would give your left arm to interview on TV, I say?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Tracy Ellis Ross, I've loved her.
Fantastic choice.
I've loved her for so long in so many things. I feel like growing up, she on Girlfriends, like she was what I saw as the like epitome of a grown like black woman. I was like, oh, she's a lawyer, but and now I'm like her age in the show, and I'm just like, what? I'm like, well, how did she
Changes
afford
everything. We're
that
like,
house?
I'm the same age as Chandler, Ross, and okay, cool, cool,
Right?
cool,
I'm
cool, cool,
like,
cool.
oh my gosh, no, that I'm not an adult like that. But and then into Blackish, which is one of the first shows I ever got to kind of professionally write about. And I did an early review of an episode that like focuses on Junior dating a white woman. It's called like being racial, and it's about her character being mixed. And I wrote a piece about it, and she shared it on Twitter and was like, Ashley, I want to thank you for these like beautiful words. Thank you for this nuanced and respectful look into the show and the episode. And it was like one of the first times someone really, a famous, like a big person had celebrated my work publicly. And I was just like, oh my God, I still have like the screenshot of it. And
As
so,
you should, though.
right. And it was just one of those moments. I remember when it happened, I was like at a work event and I was getting out of my car and I was like, what has happened here? And I looked at my phone and was just like, oh my gosh, Tracy Ellis Ross liked what I wrote. Um, so I would just love to talk to her. I think she's so funny. I think she should have won so many Emmys for comedy acting. She has such an incredible physical sense of comedy, just a way of defining her voice and lines. And I hope that this industry comes to respect and see that. So
We're putting it out there.
yes,
May Tracy Ellis Ross please
Tracy
be the
Ellis
next
Ross,
guest on
please.
TV, I say. So, Ashley Ray, if you had to say right now the show that everybody should binge over the holidays, the show that you think people should consider that maybe they not maybe not even just binge, just like you haven't maybe considered the show, maybe you should look at it, and then a show that you have personally decided that you may not be returning to for whatever reasons you might
Ooh.
have.
Okay. For the first one, show that you might, I'm going to start with the show you might not have thought of because that one came to me first. You probably haven't thought of watching 5 Days at Memorial. It's on Apple TV, a platform many people do not have, but it is absolutely worth it. They have been knocking out of the park with a few things, so you get it, so you can watch more than just Ted Lasso. But 5 Days at Memorial looks at the hospital in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina and what the staff had to do in order to survive in the 5 days after the hurricane before they were evacuated. It is not holiday watching. Don't watch this to cheer up with your family. But you know that weird week in between like Christmas and New Year's where you're not really doing work and you can just like drink all day and you're like, I don't know, I want to kind of learn something but have an emotional journey. Watch it. Do an episode a day, binge it. Yeah, I just rewatched it with a friend. I was on vacation and she started it, and I was just like, see, it's really moving and does a great job telling an important story in American history in a really fair and balanced way. And I think it'll make people angry and care about something and just kind of really understand how this country continues to fail us when it comes to health and disability support. And yeah, so go check that one out. I thought more people would be talking about that show. There's amazing performances and it's clear Emmy material and no one is talking about it. So I feel like it's some sort of conspiracy. They don't want people to know. So go watch it.
Nice.
The one that you should binge for a good time over the holidays. Welcome to Chippendales, which just came out on Hulu today. It stars Kumail Nanjiani. It's so funny and also dark. I like it more than Pam and Tommy, but it also has that kind of same vibe of just sleazy vintage TV. It's kind of what I wanted from the new American Gigolo that I didn't really get from it. It's a really entertaining vibe. So that one, don't watch it with your parents, I guess. It's, a little, but that's one that,
Unless you have a better relationship with them
yeah.
than we might
I mean,
think.
I could probably watch it with my mom, but But Friendsgiving, that's one that would be fun to throw on. And a show that I have given up on. Okay, like I said, I was on vacation. I was in Colombia, and in Colombia, very hard to watch American TV. Like I couldn't get a lot of live stuff or, just stuff that comes out on network. I could only get like a lot of streaming shows. So I fell out of watching SNL, Saturday Night Live. I missed like 3 episodes, and I just kind of realized nobody catches up on 3 episodes of Saturday Night Live. Not in this day and age. Not in this day and age. Like, I was like,
No.
I'm not gonna sit here and go, oh, let me see what Jack Harlow did. That's not happening.
Especially
So
with a brand new so many people left, a brand new
so many, yeah,
cast,
and
don't quite have attachments yet.
I love so many people on the new cast. There's so much talent. Molly Carney, Sarah Sherman, Michael Longfellow, they are killing it. And when someone shares a wonderful skit that any of them did on Twitter, I am right there retweeting it, baby. But I think I'm going to stick to highlights on YouTube. And then maybe if like a really good guest comes back, I'll watch that episode. But sadly, I just fell out of step with it. And maybe next season I'll get back in line.
See, so in addition to Tracy Ellis Ross, we're going to ask that Lorne Michaels make its way to the TV I say guest line, so that way
Yeah.
we can pick a little bone with Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
So again, speaking
Who
of the
doesn't have a
show,
bone with Lauren? We all got a bone.
after 40 plus years of TV content, I think more than enough people have a bone to pick. So for folks who haven't had a chance to get to listen to the show and who want to listen to more episodes, especially if they're going to be binging something over the holidays, how can people best find you and your show?
Yeah, you can always anywhere on social media or my website, The Ashley Ray, theashleyray.com, at The Ashley Ray, everywhere. Wherever you listen to podcasts, just, subscribe, TV I Say. And the cool thing about the show is I am very spoiler free. I don't believe in spoilers. I try to talk about shows in a sort of larger context instead of being really plot specific. So you can revisit old episodes if you're like, oh, I just got around to watching Hoarders versus Hoarding Buried Alive, and I would love to hear the 20 minutes about that. You can go back and enjoy it. I'm not going to tell you, whether or not they keep their house. So, or, a show that matters, like a
Nice.
game of House of the Dragon, something, but you can go back and listen. And if there are spoilers, we will let you know. So, catch up on a bunch of old TV, go listen to what I had to say about Atlanta, or, go watch P-Valley, another amazing show that does not get enough attention. I got to talk to Uncle Clifford in the first season of the show. It's a wonderful combo, one of my favorite episodes. So, yeah.
Nice. So everybody, please be sure to check it out. Again, wherever you listen to podcasts, including this one. But Ashley, I'm so glad that we could reunite after 2 years. Again, for those who remember
Yeah.
the story I started us out with. But I'm so excited to see how this is all turning out. And I definitely watch a lot of TV, and I definitely have quite a bit to say. And so I'm glad that we could say it with each other today.
Yeah, and you're gonna be coming on TV, I say, because we gotta talk. We gotta talk deep TV.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into it.
Nice. Love it.